Welcome back to your Valley Sports Plugs Heat Check Podcast Live. It is Wednesday, July 9th, 2025. I'm your host, Chris Patrick, joined this evening by my co-host, Mr. Michael Benjamin. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Chris, oh my goodness, it is hot in the Valley of the Sun, 113 degrees. But you know what's even hotter? Devin Armani Booker's bank account right now. Chris, how you doing tonight, man?
Man, I'm doing good. Probably not as good as Devin Booker. That 2-year, $145 million extension, that news just breaking within the last couple hours, I think. But yeah, Mike, it's hot out there. Really takes the life and the energy out of me on days like this. But we normally stream every Tuesday at 7 p.m. here on Valley Sports Plug YouTube channel. But this week had to do it a bit different. Pushed it back a day, but we're here on a Wednesday. But I'm excited because there's a lot to talk about, Mike. You mentioned the Booker extension. James Jones is leaving Phoenix and joining the NBA front office with the new position. We're still on Bradley Beal buyout watch. Hasn't happened yet. We keep hearing that it's going to be any minute now. Expect to get that notification, but haven't seen it yet. Maybe it happens during this stream. You never know. More Phoenix Suns action coming off the heels of them wrapping up their draft a couple weeks ago. Of course, got the young man Kaman Malawach to look out for. The Summer League starts this Friday. The Suns will face the Washington Wizards this Friday, 6 p.m. So if you were sad that basketball has been over for all of 3 weeks, Summer League is starting up. Love that. And then just a little bit of Diamondbacks news. We got the All-Star break coming up next week in Atlanta. No Dbacks named to the home run derby yet, but we got a couple Diamondbacks on the MLB All-Star roster. I think, what is it? Ketel is the only starter. He'll be starting there at second base. So I know they had a strong push, but enough rambling, Mike. Let's just get right into the meat and potatoes here. That Devin Booker contract extension. He now has 5 years total remaining on his contract to keep him here through the 2029-2030 deal. And that's about $316 million in total. But what is your immediate reaction to the 2-year extension there? Big money. Big money.
Oh, big money, Chris. Let's say it. I love Devin Booker. And for what he has done for the Valley, bringing us within 2 games of a championship in 2021. Both of those wins I was in attendance for. It's awesome to see the wherewithal from this kid and basically the buy-in, right? I mean, when you're making almost $75 million per year, I think it's easy to buy in. But it's funny, too, because everybody was going crazy when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander signed his extension. And that was only 8 days. So he held the title for the highest extension for only 8 days. And now Devin Booker is the most lucrative extension in NBA history on the basis of average annual value. I mean, 10 seasons with the team, Chris. He's our franchise leader in points, 16,452 points. 3-point leader with 1,424. He's averaged over 25 points for the past 7 seasons. But this past season was his lowest since 2021 in 25.6 points per game. But I'm excited to see the limelight shift back to Devin Armani Booker and for him to be the true leader, right? Because what did we always hope for during the Kevin Durant era, which was only 2.5 years long? It was for Devin Booker to understand that he is still the main guy. And it seemed like he could never truly get his footing with that cast of characters around him. And to see him want to still be a part of the Valley, want to continue to cement his legacy. I mean, if he truly sticks out this extension, Chris, which puts him with the Phoenix Suns through the 2029-2030 season, you're talking about possibly an impossible scoring record to touch when it all comes down to it, because he's still only 28 years old. He's really just reaching his prime right now. So I think there's going to be a whole lot of conversations as the years go along, especially when those numbers start to kick into the salary cap. But yes, we know it's bumping up every single year as well. How does this team really look around him? And are we going to be handcuffed by paying him $72.5 million per year? But honestly, that's something for future Mr. Benjamin to worry about. It's all about the right now, and Devin Booker is here to stay, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I'm stoked on it, honestly. Like made the case perfectly. He's your franchise player, cornerstone. He'll put asses in seats, and having to worry about paying those guys or the second apron, whatever. Those are called champagne problems. Like we'll take those kind of problems all day. If it's like, oh no, how are we going to spend these millions of dollars? But yeah, I'm excited to see what Devin Booker does without Kevin Durant, honestly, because we did talk about it a lot where it seemed like he deferred to Kevin a lot to shoulder that scoring burden. But we know Devin Booker is a ball dominant scorer, so this is a chance for him to do that again. Now, how is that going to work with bringing in Gerald Green as well? We kind of got like a little answer non-answer from Brian Gregory in a press conference earlier this week, where basically they had asked like, how is the combination of Devin Booker and Gerald Green going to work? Like, are you going to, they're both ball dominant guards. Like, oh, well, they're both young, athletic, fast paced. We think it's going to be a good pairing with the way we want to play. But a lot of the criticism immediately is, well, you could make that same case about Bradley Beal like a year or two ago. But I don't know. It's all about availability, and you hope that these guys are going to be healthy and more available than Beal has. But with Booker specifically, like I think it's a good sign as a fan that you got Devin Booker being completely on board. He wants to be a member of this Phoenix Suns team, and probably has some level of belief that this is going to be a quicker turnaround in a sense, where it's like he's going to be able to stay here through the dark days, but that they're not going to be that long. And he thinks within 5 years this team is back to contending. But oof, that's a lot of money, man. 316 million remaining for 5 years. We're gonna get to a point with these NBA contracts where guys are making $1 million per game, like $82 million a year.
I mean, and honestly, Chris, it's probably going to happen within the next 3 seasons. I would say so. I mean, look at this. Steve Nash's entire career, 2-time MVP. Granted, in his heyday, it was literally 20 years ago at this point. But Devin Booker's 2-year extension is only $2 million less than the career earnings of Steve Nash. I mean, we know all of the money that is flowing through the NBA right now with all of the TV deals changing hands and things going back to ABC, NBA on NBC, all that fun stuff. So the money just keeps going up. The one thing that worries me about those kind of things from a fan standpoint, Chris, is how else do you need to get that money in? Your season tickets have to go up. Your prices of concessions have to consistently be pushed up as well. Credit to Matt Ishbia, who's instituted the $2 easy little hot dog and popcorn thing. Hopefully that sticks around for a long time. But from a fan perspective, when is it going to become so impossible to go to games because you're basically priced out because these guys are making $1 million per game? But I think you said it perfectly. Those are champagne problems. I still got my season tickets for next year. I'm getting more and more excited by the day of the thought process of getting to see Jalen Green on a day-to-day basis, Chris, because of how athletic he is. And I like how you brought up the comments from Brian Gregory as well. I got him right here. He said, they're both great with the ball. I think they can play off of each other when they don't have the ball. I think our style of playing at a faster pace with better movement is going to open up the court for both of them. I hope so, because what's the other thing that you have to keep in mind is we're transitioning back to point book. And has it truly been successful in the time frame that we've seen it? I don't know. And there's still so many question marks for this Phoenix Suns team. But, man, pairing a quick athletic guard who's only 23 years old up with Devin Armani Booker, who is entering his prime, going to be able to learn from him in a similar position, right? That's what I'm excited for the most as well. And we're going to have to hit it out of the park with this Jalen Green trade, getting rid of Kevin Durant. I think there's still time to understand that. But yeah, I got to touch on the other thing that you said too. I mean, hopefully Devin Booker might see that this turnaround is quicker than what you are saying, your 5 years, because if it's 5 years, that's the end of his extension. And then he might be off to greener pastures at that time. But dude, I mean, he is a Valley legend already. We've already done our Mount Rushmores, and he's been on probably all of ours so far. And I think it's hard set to ask any true Arizona sports fan if you talk about who is the best Phoenix Suns player of all time at this point. I would say 95% of people are saying Devin Booker. So it's awesome to see him stay in the Valley, even through this tumultuous time, the second time that he's had to go through it in his career, and hopefully lead us to the promised land like we have always hoped for from Devin.
And I think there's reason to be optimistic and like not be too down about this little rebuild, because yeah, it might be 3, 4, 5 years like we keep saying, but there's more pedigree now with Devin Booker. Like before, we were stoked that anyone wanted to come here. It was Chris Paul and then Kevin Durant that actually wanted to come here because of Devin Booker, not because of anything a coach or a program or culture was doing. It was legitimately because these guys believed in Devin Booker and the other young core and wanted to grow with them. So I know we sat here and I know I'm still sad that the Kevin Durant era came to an end and it kind of sputtered out and we never really got to, experience any highs or lows. It seemed like it was always just lows of us not succeeding on the basketball court. But with this, like, yeah, it might be bad now. And whatever this buyout ends up looking like with Beal that has this money on the books for potentially the next 5 years in dead money, you're going to have stars in those in that time frame and guys that want to continue to come play here because of Devin Booker. And I don't think that's going to change. And even if Book is in his early 30s, 31, 32, still not out of the realm of possibility of being considered to be in your prime. So at that time, I mean, yeah, it's sad that Kevin Durant's gone and the Booker and Durant thing didn't work out. But who's the next great star that's going to play alongside Devin Booker? I don't think it's going to be, I mean, you could say Jalen Green. People think he still has the chance to be a budding star in this league. But I have a feeling that when the history books are written, there's going to be another star that plays alongside Devin Booker in a Phoenix Suns uniform. It's hard to say who or when that'll be, because man, if there's one thing that the NBA has taught me this last year is like, man, you never know what could happen. You wake up one morning and Luka Doncic is on the Lakers, and Klay Thompson is on the Mavericks, and Kyrie has played for a bunch of different teams I never would have thought of. Like, it's crazy, but all that coming full circle is it's awesome that Devin Booker wants to be here. And I think it's only a net positive. And that's why you do it, because not only does it put asses in seats and fans want to see Booker, but guys respect Booker in this league and they want to play with him. So as far as future roster building prospects goes, it's a great thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, and hasn't he always said that he wanted to bring the players to Phoenix? And technically he's done that, right? Have we swung and missed in that circumstance? To an extent, I think you have to consider, when he talked about bringing players to the Valley as well, you have to put Chris Paul into that camp. And what did we do? I mean, we had an incredible 3-year stretch where one of the seasons we went to the NBA Finals. So he has succeeded in that. And there's no way that you can't look me in the eye and say that he can't succeed in doing that again and bringing in high profile other superstars within this league, man. I wonder how, what's going to be the right fit around Devin Booker in regard to a secondary superstar? Because bringing in Chris Paul at that time frame, he was getting up there, right? I don't think you could still consider him a superstar like he was, in the 2010s, his time with the Hornets and the Clippers. But he was still kind of a star, I would say. But he was a connector, right? He was that true leadership figure that the team needed. And Chris Paul helped propel Devin Booker to levels that he had never seen before. And I don't know if he ever truly thought he could get to. And Chris Paul helped pull a whole bunch of these other guys to, levels that honestly, some of us probably might have never thought. Especially we'll say for DeAndre Ayton to start his career. And now will he ever get to that as well? But I think the transition for Devin Booker now, Chris, is he's going to have to take on that Chris Paul role, right? If there is another young superstar that comes eventually to the Phoenix Suns, that's why I doubled down on saying I always wanted Devin Booker to be the main guy, even when Kevin Durant was here, because he has tasted the success, the playoff success. He set all these records, even that season where we lost to the Denver Nuggets when he was, shooting 70, 80% and scoring 35 plus points a game. Like, he is still a star in this league the past 2 seasons has taken the super off of that name right now, but you can't tell me that he can't reach that level again. And I'm just so excited to see where this next era of Phoenix Suns basketball goes. And it sounds like it's going to be without Bradley Beal. So that's even better.
Hey, at this point, man, sounds good to me. And with the last thing I'll say about like the whole Devin Booker point book thing, I mean, the last thing for today, I'm sure we'll touch on it some more, but the more I think about it is like, it doesn't bother me as much because the superstar point guard store is not open for business. There's not just somewhere the Suns can go and find these guys a dime a dozen. Like it's hard to find like a true franchise point guard. Just like in football, it's hard to find a franchise quarterback. So, swing and a miss on Tyus Jones. He was never brought in here with the expectation that he would be a start point guard, but he couldn't even man the ship and be a starting point guard. So it's tough in this league to do that. But with Devin Booker, if they have these ideas of playing like a fast paced, free and loose offense, it could work. It could work. I just watching I'm nervous, Mike. I will say, because watching clips of Jalen Green highlights to try and get warm to the idea of having him on this team, it's a lot of ISO ball. Just like I got the ball, I do a little dribble move, and then I either dunk it or pull up for the mid range, and like that's a lot of Devin Booker's bag too. So that was one of our big criticisms, is like, where's the ball movement? Where's the offensive schemes here? It's just, is there going to be a scheme, Mike, or is it just going to be more like we saw this year with one-on-one bullshit?
It's got to be different, Chris, because you can't keep pounding your head into the sand thinking that, the shit is going to be not as stinky next year. It's funny. Bright Side of the Sun put out an article, I think earlier today, that said the backcourt, what are we're getting ourselves into deja vu right now, right? I mean, you've already said it. You could almost put Bradley Beal in the camp of what Jalen Green could do. Now, Bradley Beal is so injured and he can kind of get up still to a certain extent, but definitely not in the same facet as Jalen Green right now. But yeah, that is a bit worrisome. Because I think the other thing too is like, we're going to have to rely on Jalen Green to score and fill it up to a certain extent, right? Devin Booker is going to score over 25 points per game, closing his eyes. But, where are we going to get that other, extensive minutes out of our starters and true contributions from our second units? And the first guy I think you have to look at right now is Jalen Green, because he did have a successful season last year with the Houston Rockets. That team was very well built as well. I think they've done a great job this offseason as well. Watch out for the Houston Rockets. But Jalen Green was their leading scorer last year. He just wilted in the moment in the playoffs. So hopefully, if he's a kind of guy where you give him more of a leash to be creative with the basketball and he starts to see things get going, he'll want to work within a system to understand that, hey, he is one of our top 2 guys on the team and he has to be a consistent contributor. Because even in his time in Houston, Chris, I don't know if people like really looked at him as the main catalyst, right? I mean, Alfred Şengün has jumped on the map over the past 2 years. When they traded for Fred VanVleet, he seemed like he was kind of a tick above Jalen Green on the pecking order, right? And you had his new running mate with the Phoenix Suns as well, Dylan Brooks there, and they had a lot of young pieces that were contributors like Jabari Smith Jr. I don't think that he was ever looked at as the true like face of the franchise over the past 2 years. So he's going to a situation where he's not going to be the face of the franchise again, but he's going to have to be heavily relied on if this Phoenix Suns team is going to see any success. There's still worry and doubt that you have to have with running a shorter backcourt, which you have to understand that it is. Jalen Green is maybe 6'2", 6'3". They're going to have to get creative on the defensive side. It's going to have to be scheme based on the offensive side too, when they're not running their, small quick actions and then seeing, 10 seconds on the shot clock. If Devin Booker or Jalen Green can get into a good shot, you got to mix it up. And that's hopefully what Jordan Ott will do. And hopefully we'll see success sooner rather than later. That's what we're all crossing our fingers for.
Yeah, man. Honestly, like and that's the thing. Like with all of these off-season moves, I want it to go well, and I can be critical of the hiring of, Brian Gregory, the GM, and then Jordan Ott, the coach, and I am still critical of those. But a lot of people are going to mistake that for, like doubt. Not necessarily doubt, but like that I'm wishing them to not do well, and then that's not the case. Like I'm going to be critical. I can say that I don't think they're going to do well, but I can also hope that they do well. Like prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Like if I don't think they're going to do well. But so far, Mike, like there are some questionable things that I've heard and just through the grapevine. And I want to know what your thoughts are on it. So obviously we had the draft, what was it, 2 weeks ago now? And there was a move made where we obviously with the number 10 pick, we drafted Kaman Malawach. But at the same time, we completed a trade with the Charlotte Hornets to get Mark Williams, right? And it sounds like from what I was hearing today, and maybe you've heard about this as well, it sounds like the talks with Charlotte were already happening and they were interested in Mark Williams and there was some back and forth there. And that it just so happened that that trade was coming to fruition right at the same time as they were up to draft Malawach, and they didn't think he was going to be available. So what my understanding was is that their plan wasn't to have two centers, but that's just how it worked out. And now they're going to deal with it. And not only do they have two centers, but don't forget, I'm pretty sure we still have Nick Richards on the roster as well, and Oso Ighodaro, the rookie from last year. Now, did you draft Malawach to be your starting center, or was your plan always to have him? He's a young guy, 18, going to be 19 very early in the season. So is your plan just to have a veteran like Mark Williams in there for a couple years while Malawach grows? Or I mean, I honestly think it'd be a good opportunity for Malawach to just get thrown into the fire. Like, hey, young man, like you're an NBA player now. You're going to play 30 minutes a game. Here you go.
Yeah, I think Malawach has the talent to be a starter. Obviously, on a team that is not hopeful for title contention, right? He has the intangibles, man. Just his sheer length in general, being 7'2" and having that 7'9" wingspan. We know that the day and age of the true dominant big man post player is transitioning outward, and it has been over the past 10 seasons. But I think there's still, a case to be made for those kind of guys needing to be crucial pieces for any competent starting lineup, to be honest with you, Chris. Especially it depends on how you build out the other four, right? The Phoenix Suns brought in a guy like Rasheer Fleming, who was successful in shooting the three ball out of St. Joe's. They bring in Kobe Brea, who's another young guy who was possibly the best shooter in the draft. We'll see if he really gets any kind of time. But I think the Phoenix Suns are in a position where you have to put out these young guys to see what they're truly made of. And it's funny to think about. Even when we had very high expectations of the Phoenix Suns last year before, the castle came crumbling down in front of our eyes, we were putting the fuel to the fire for our rookies with Ryan Dunn and Oso Ighodaro. Both of those guys got double digits worth of starts the entire season. Ryan Dunn, I think, got starts based off of his performance to start the season, but then Oso got thrown into the fire just because we started having the issues with Jusuf Nurkic, the general injuries that come with, an 82 NBA game season. But with where we sit and the pieces that we have, these young guys are going to have to play, and they're going to have to be crucial competitors to start. So I always kind of like the mentality of picking the best available player in drafts that are a little bit, I would say a little bit smaller, like NBA drafts, right? What killed the Arizona Cardinals when they drafted Isaiah Simmons? They drafted the best available player, but was it the best available fit for the team as a whole? Obviously it wasn't. It didn't pan out. But you had 7 rounds worth of draft to try and find the best pieces to fit, right? We're getting a little bit off topic with the Arizona Cardinals, but when it comes down to basketball teams, you only have 15 spots on a team, and the cream always rises to the top. So bring in the best talent, right? because what do we already know about with Mark Williams? I like how you call him a veteran, and he's only 23 years old too. So he's only played 4 seasons in the NBA. He's still a young guy himself, but he will have a certain veteran presence with Kaman Malawach and some of those other younger guys because he has been in the game for more years than they have. But you know his injury history, so you are almost kind of game planning, I think. When they made the trade for Mark Williams, maybe it wasn't a game plan to pick Malawach because he wasn't going to be there, but I would not have been surprised if the Suns would have moved back or tried to keep their later first round pick or move up again and get another center to pair along with him so they can start really evaluating what they have in the front court, which has been a bugaboo for this Suns team for the past 3 seasons, and start trying to develop some of these young guys to see if they're the true answer and somebody that they can keep on a lower contract right now, especially with where the Phoenix Suns have sat. So long-winded answer, Chris. You know I always get into my long-winded story time sometimes, but best player available, sometimes you just got to do it.
Yeah, and I agree with that philosophy, and that was a very astute breakdown. Like, I think you got to try and get the best players on this roster right now and like let it kind of, let the chips fall where they may. Like you're saying, like the best players will come out and then you figure it out from there. But for right now, it's just having the most amount of talent on this roster. And like, yeah, that is kind of crazy. Like I didn't realize Mark Williams was still that young and doesn't have a lot of miles on the tires there, obviously due to injury. And that was the other thing is kind of like the hubris of this staff thinking like, oh, Mark Williams injury history. Well, we're pretty confident that our training staff can get him on the straight and narrow. And oh, well, that worked out really well with Bradley Beal. You guys did a real good job with him. And I know it's different case to case, and like guys can get that moniker and then grow out of it. Like knock on wood, maybe Michael Wilson's getting past some of his injury history. More Cardinals shout out there, but yeah, sometimes it's just a series of unfortunate events. Like we talked about Michael Porter Jr., plagued by injuries at the beginning of his career. I think he's actually played over 75 plus games his last 2 seasons. Like I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but he's turned it around. So could that be the case for Mark Williams? Could he have just kind of stumbled out of the gate with some unfortunate injuries and now he's going to be solid and play 70 plus games in a season? I sure hope so. It'd be better to have options than no options. So, and last thing to just kind of double down on your point, I would expect Mark Williams will probably be the starter, but if Malawach ends up exceeding expectations and just being this, can't miss stud out the gate, then you start him and you bring Williams off the bench, and then you just have a solid, 1-2 punch at the center position. And, being spoiled for choice is better than not having any choice at all. But it is interesting, just the roster construction in general. I'm curious what other pieces are going to fall. But I think a lot of that does kind of hinder on the Bradley Beal buyout situation. I do want to touch on that briefly, although there's not much to talk about. I want to first, before we forget to get to it, former decision maker for the Phoenix Suns is no longer with the organization with the hiring of Brian Gregory. The GM, general management services of James Jones were no longer needed, and it was announced that he would step into a senior advisory role or something. Basically sounded like he was just going to sit in a comfy air-conditioned office until his contract expired. And we kind of expected he'd be going his separate ways with that diminished role. But NBA names James Jones executive vice president, head of basketball operations. So, Mike, does this mean that James Jones will be announcing the draft picks?
No, I don't believe so. Like any large corporation or company, there's multiple executive vice presidents and faux CEOs or whatever you want to call it. From what it sounds like, so James Jones, he's going to be overseeing all the basketball operation matters for the NBA. So things like development of playing rules, interpretations, the conduct and discipline, different policies and procedures relating to the operations of the games. So he's going to be basically like boots on the ground with players, coaches, team executives, and referees, dissecting the game of basketball and how the state of the NBA is, and the style of play, playing rules issues, and, creating the new chapter of NBA basketball. Chris, honestly, this is such a cool opportunity for James Jones, and I think it's more than well deserved. No matter what you want to say about how he has maneuvered things over the past couple of seasons, we still have the cloud over our heads in regard to the questions of, was it James Jones' true decisions or was it Matt Ishbia? You just have to think about the start of his tenure with this team. I think technically was around 2017, 2018, where when we had the first overall pick in 2018, that pick was actually made by Ryan McDonough. It was not James Jones. He was part of the front office. Then the season started, and then they basically ran Ryan out the building and gave the job to James Jones. And we know what he was able to do from there. He was able to, convince guys like Chris Paul and Jay Crowder to come to the Valley, bring in, key other pieces like Dario Saric. I was just so impressed for what he was able to do given what was put on his plate to start his tenure. After the Phoenix Suns had been so dreadful for 6 straight years. And he started to turn the corner faster than I think a lot of people imagined. And now the NBA community as a whole is seeing, how this 3-time champ and former executive of the year for the NBA is such a worthy commodity to have. And for him to join the NBA in this capacity, it's you just have to nod your head and give thanks for his time in the Valley. And man, I'm excited for this opportunity to see. Maybe eventually when they go to like 3 rounds of NBA drafts, Chris, when they expand, 6 other cities to get teams, then he'll announce the 3rd round of the draft. But he's the boots on the ground guy right now, and it's awesome, man.
Yeah, wow, I like that. Honestly, much deserved for James. Sounds like a really sweet job, and like good for him and his family to be, having such a high level stable position in Phoenix for so long. Now being able to move up to the league level, I imagine that's probably pretty stable as well. Incredible what he's been able to do post career, because I really like James Jones during his career too. His time with Phoenix and Cleveland is what I remember him mostly for, but. Man, it is interesting, kind of sad to see the changing of the guard in a lot of ways, but hoping, as I mentioned, stability for James Jones in his career. Hopefully the Suns front office can find some stability, because it seems to be, not to be Captain Obvious over here, but it seems to be with any successful sports organization that has extended consistent success, they have generally solid front office to start. It all starts at the top and works its ways down, and you see that with like coaching as well. And having so many coaches over the last 10 years has been tough. But hey, maybe Jordan Ott will be the next one of those head coaches, the next Greg Popovich. All these guys got to start somewhere. So Mike, I know it's a bit of a different like optimistic tone I'm going with, and that's intentional. I'm gonna try and carry that throughout the summer. But
wait, I gotta say this. I like it. You're
okay.
You're in the right space. What's your famous phrase that you love? Cautious optimism.
Cautious optimism.
If there is ever a season to have it, this probably would be the season where you might be grasping for it a little bit more. I'm definitely more leaning towards cautious than true optimism. But yeah, the other thing I just wanted to touch on is it's crazy to see how this transition has happened since 2021, Chris. We're talking about just 4 years ago. I think I sent you a picture of when me and my brother-in-law were at game 1 holding up the, don't kill us, Suns fan. It was Suns fans. It was a moment in time. The Suns in 4 guy, we're holding it up during that run. And I saw a video, I think it was either yesterday or today, of Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks showing up at the practice facility, and there's Brian Gregory and Jordan Ott. And the only thing I could think to myself was, who are these strangers, Chris? Like the waves and moves, not only from a player standpoint, but from a leadership standpoint in the front office, has happened so fast. it's been basically a blink of an eye. And I know we're not the only sports town that goes through it, but man, to have been so close to reaching the ultimate goal to now having so many different moving pieces is just always crazy to think about. But we're embracing them, and we're going to be cautiously optimistic, as Chris Patrick would say.
You gotta be, man. I mean, especially coming up on a season like this, like you said, there's really no expectations. This team can still break my heart for sure, and I'm ready for it because I'm not gonna go in with the perspective of like we better make the playoffs or I'll be pissed if we don't. I will go in with the mindset of more like we could make the playoffs. Why not? Let's see what happens. Maybe they'll capture lightning in a bottle. Maybe they'll have a Pacers-esque run. You never know. You never know, Mike. But it is going to depend a lot on how the continued construction of this roster goes. And that's really like the last Suns related topic I wanted to touch on was this Bradley Beal buyout situation. We've talked a bit about the possibilities. Of course, you want to trade him. That's the most ideal situation, but it just doesn't seem like there's a trade partner out there. It seems like any team that even has the slightest level of interest in Bradley Beal is just waiting for him to get bought out or cut at this point so that they can offer him a much lesser contract. Like nobody wants Bradley Beal for 50 plus million a year, even if that's only a 2-year prospect, and that's like, I'm still like, now that all this reporting is coming out where it seems like it's for sure that he's going to get bought out, they're hoping to get it somewhere in like, I think the $94 million range or something like that. Something to do with the stretching out that amount of money over 5 years falls under a certain threshold. So it's all like this money movement thing. But Mike, I don't know about you. And I guess I'll just ask you this question. Like with all this talk and everybody's spin that they've tried to put on it, I am still in the buyout is bad camp. I think, if even if you can't find a trade partner, you keep him and see what you can get out of him, because it's just sucking it up for the next 2 years is going to be much of a less painful, hit to us than just eating all that money and not being able to construct this roster to its full potential for 5 years. What do you think?
Call me Brian Gregory. We are aligned, Christopher. This is basically like pool in case of emergency type of situation. And the Phoenix Suns front office is looking at this situation with Bradley Beal, the changing of the guard and leadership, and stating that Bradley Beal cannot be a part of this future, and we have to get rid of him at all costs. And the worst case scenario, I feel, is still coming to light because, man, weren't we just talking on the Pass the Outlet podcast the other day about what the hell the Milwaukee Bucks are doing by waiving and stretching Damian Lillard and eating $22 million per year of his contract, basically paying Miles Turner $50 million per year. Now, I don't know how true this is, but I did see a different post basically that says, with the collective bargaining agreement and how buyouts truly work, with whatever kind of contract Bradley Beal signs, because let me ask you this before I keep going. Wherever Brad goes next, what do you think the average annual salary will be for him, Chris? What's your like ballpark you're thinking he might make?
Without being disrespectful, like I think, he's probably worth like 10 mil a year, 10, 15 mil a year.
Yeah, I think that's the number that a lot of people are saying. 10 to $12 million. The guy hasn't played over 55 games in 6 seasons, so it's hard to stretch further than that. Like, you can't give him a Royce O'Neal or Grayson Allen type of deal. You're not going to commit to him more than maybe 2 seasons. But depending on what he signs with another team, so say it is $12 million, our cap costs from the buyout can drop further. So what it sounds like, cutting, doing the cut and him taking, I think it was like what, $10 to $14 million less based off the buyout, would put the Phoenix Suns at giving him $19 million for the next 5 seasons. If he makes $10 to $12 million, say for the next 2 seasons, you're cutting your cap down from $19 million to $14 million paid. So the eventual positives that come from a buyout from Bradley Beal is obviously it puts you under that second apron, which is completely dreaded by a bunch of teams now. You're seeing what the Boston Celtics are doing. You're seeing what all these other teams are doing. Even the Indiana Pacers, who just made an NBA Finals run. They didn't want to go into the aprons, so they didn't pay Miles Turner, which I think is crazy. But then you're getting some of your picks back. You're not having to do swaps or anything like that. You're getting mid-level exemptions that you can, sign these players. So from a structured roster standpoint, I think it's still positive. But biting the bullet for the next 5 seasons, having to pay anybody over double digits worth $1 million at the end of the day, Chris, is where it kills me, man. Like this is why I say this was supposed to be the last case scenario for the situation with Bradley Beal. But he played so poorly, has been such a bad fit over the past couple of seasons, not only with the Phoenix Suns, but the tail end of his time with the Washington Wizards. His services are still wanted, but nobody in hell was going to touch that $50 million price point for the next 2 years for him. So he became an absolute untradeable asset. And this is the only route the Phoenix Suns had. So you make the pros and cons list. Still, at the end of the day, I hate that we're doing it, but all my homies hate Bradley Beal. So it is still a positive at the end of the day.
And we will continue to hate Bradley Beal, even when he's wearing a Lakers jersey or a Timberwolves jersey or wherever he ends up, because it's hard for me to not believe like it's partially personal at this point. Like, and I know like Suns fans, like there were those reports of people being weird and like saying shit to his family and his kids. And it's like, yeah, we all hate Bradley Beal, but like, don't harass his family. Like, that's a little too far. But so like that type of stuff aside though, like a fan base that clearly does not want Bradley Beal here. I almost feel like he's trolling us, Mike, because he was in an interview or like, I don't know, social media or something, and basically said that he still he has unfinished business here in Phoenix. Like he wants to be here. And it's like, it's funny, like to put that up against like Kevin Durant and like his comments where it's like, well, it seemed like they didn't want me there anymore. Like, we very clearly don't want Bradley Beal here. And he's just like, but I want to be here. It's like Kevin Durant couldn't muster up to say like, yeah, I still wanted to be there, but they didn't want me. Like, at least he's not going to lie. So like, that's where I feel like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like Bradley Beal really wants to be here. And like going back to like the comments about like the training staff can heal Mark Williams. It's like, were they trying everything they could with Bradley Beal and like Bradley Beal just refuses to try and actually be healthy or like play through, little bang ups here or there? I genuinely don't know, because that question was another one I heard posed in some corners of the internet, where it's like basically like, if you do go the route with Bradley Beal of like, all right, we couldn't find a trade partner for you financially, we're still not sure if we want to cut you, so we'll keep you on the roster, maybe we can move you by the trade deadline or something. And you're just like, kind of like they did with Jay Crowder, where it's like, you're still on the team because we couldn't find a trade partner for you, but you're not on the team, so like go home, don't show up at the facility, don't practice with us. At what point does Bradley Beal start to have like a little bit of competitive fire in him somewhere to be like, man, I really want to be playing basketball professionally while I'm still able to? Yeah, I'm banged up and not in my prime anymore. I'm 32, but I still got some good seasons. I still believe I have some good seasons left in me. Let me go back to the negotiating table with the Suns and go with a lesser buyout than I initially wanted to. Hey, you guys wanted to buy me out, but I still wanted my money. So like now I actually do want to play. So I'll go take this buyout and go try and get, it's hard for everyday people like us to see guys like Bradley Beal who made hundreds of millions of dollars it's easy for me to say like, Brad, you're going to earn 95 million, but you're getting caught up because you're making 95 million instead of 115 million or whatever the numbers are. Like I'm pulling those numbers out of my ass, but when you're talking about like 15-20 million dollars, like, yes, that is a lot of fucking money. Like that's life-changing money. Most of us will never, ever see that amount of money in one spot. But Bradley Beal, like from your perspective, the difference is $20 million when it's 95 to $115 million. Like, I don't know. I get it. Like, get your money, but you're already set up for life. Like, why are you making our life more difficult by being here? But that's why, that full circle, that's why, like, just get it over with, man. Like if you can't find someone to trade him to, just eat up these 2 years and then be free from Bradley Beal. And then you only have Devin Booker's contract, and the other contracts on this roster look pretty manageable. I know Jalen Green is making some decent money, but nowhere near the albatross of contracts we had on our books last year with having Durant, Booker, and Beal in that contract. So I just hope they can figure something out. But if they have to buy him out, like, I guess it is what it is.
I mean, well, and from what all the reports have been sounding like, it's that basically the buyout has kind of been figured out at this point, Chris. The reason that it hasn't been announced is because Beal and his camp are working for his next team to get those numbers crunched out, basically, at this point. So until he sees kind of what he wants from whatever team he's going to, from this article here on Bleacher Report, it says he's linked to the Lakers, Warriors, Clippers. I think I also saw Timberwolves was another one as well. So until he has that squared away, we're not going to see an announcement. And I know Gambo, I think, tweeted out on Sunday that we expect to have a decision announced within 24 to 48 hours. But that's what the holdup is at this point. I got to go back to kind of what you touched on in regard to Bradley Beal. If he wants to be in the Valley, that's great. But at the same time, like, don't you think the vitriol that he would get from Phoenix Suns fans if he were to come back this next season and go and play at PHX Arena every night? Like, don't you think people are going to kind of put it on him and be like, hey, man, we don't want you here. Here's some extra booze. Like, especially when things start to turn sour and his gameplay is not very good at all. And then, like, if he gets injured again and he's still on the squad, like, you're talking about a situation where fans are going to turn even faster on him, because then all of these other issues are going to start coming out, right? Then we're going to have more consistent conversations about the second apron situation, how we're losing more picks because of where we stand, the luxury tax that has to consistently be paid every single year when you are within these aprons. Matt Ishbia already came out and said, it's like, yes, I'm willing to do that when we have a true competitor on the floor, but you can't do it consistently, and you can't do it for the first, 5 years of a tenure as an owner, because yeah, the guy's a billionaire, but at some point you want to save some money when you can. So that's where this buyout is coming from, truly, I think, from the standpoint of the front office and Matt Ishbia is, lessening the blow from a luxury tax standpoint and being in that second apron. But it still concerns me when you're putting in, good capital, like consistent high-level capital, where you could have been trying to fill it with a decent roster piece. I mean, shoot, Chris, yeah, the NBA salary cap continues to go up, but you can't tell me that you couldn't find a serviceable, maybe sixth man of the year type of player for $19 million a year in today's NBA. Like, you can get those kind of guys for that money. So to be sinking it in for the next 5 years in that situation, that's where it comes back down to our conversation that we've had over the past couple of times of what is the true window for this team. And if the window is 5+ years, oy vey, that is scary. But we have to have faith, I guess. I mean, do we have? I don't even know at this point. But the writing is on the wall. Bradley Beal will not be a part of this Phoenix Suns team next year. He is going to be moved in some capacity. And I honestly think it's for the best, for not only the morale of the franchise, but the morale of the fan base, Chris. Bradley Beal is too much of a polarizing figure to bring back, and he's too polarizing in a negative light. It's time to move on.
Yeah, honestly, like, you can't have like that negative energy. Like, aside from, anything that's happening in the locker room, which didn't seem at times like the locker room was very passionate at all last year. But like, if you go into that arena with a Bradley Beal next year, like, fans are not going to be happy. Like, through all of, like, again, not to keep tying it into the Cardinals, but through there's a lot of people who believe in Kyler Murray and there's a lot of people who don't believe in Kyler Murray. But that that divide is healthy. Like there is no divide with Bradley Beal. Like everybody hates Bradley Beal. Like we literally saw it walking out of the stadium, the Bradley Beal bobblehead giveaway, one of the last games of the season. A fan ripped his head off, broke his paintbrush, and left him to die in the cold on the streets of Phoenix, Arizona. And it's like, that's genuinely how Suns fans feel about Bradley Beal right now, where it's like, yeah, get him off of this team. Where it's like, I will double, triple down. I think we should just hold on to him. He doesn't have to play. He doesn't have to practice, but like, man, just suck up the next 2 years because I'm not sold on this whole buyout thing. But hey, maybe you're right, Mike. Maybe like in the next coming free agency periods over the next 2-3 years, we're gonna be able to sign a guy that's a 15 to $20 million role player that will be able to contribute and help this team out. Because like I'm looking at the salary cap for this next season, Mike, and it's looking bleak, man. It's looking bleak. And not just like monetarily speaking, like I'm so genuinely concerned how the on the court product is going to look. It's going to go like one of two ways, honestly. It's either going to be a complete nightmare and Jordan Ott is going to look incompetent and like he doesn't know what he's doing and there's going to be no cohesiveness, or this team will be fun at times. I think it'll be pleasantly surprising. There'll be times when they're fun and exciting to watch with extreme levels of athleticism, but they're going to be, about a 500 basketball team, like lower end, probably lottery pick, not playoff team, but like expect them to finish about where we are now. So that's what I'm talking about, like with expectations. Like if I'm going in with the expectations of, well, maybe we can make the playoffs instead of, well, we better make the playoffs. Like I think that will just make it an overall better experience. And having a guy like Bradley Beal still be a part of this team was probably not the best, but it does suck, Mike, that we're getting into that area of the off season where it's like, man, you had all the sexy trades happening. You had the draft. Now Summer League, I feel like the news train is going to start to die down a little bit here. But is there anything else that, aside from the Bradley Beal buyout, do you think there's any other big hammers that are going to drop on us here? I think Chris Paul still has to sign somewhere.
Chris Paul could be one of them from what it sounds like. He wants to be closer to home in Los Angeles. I don't know about you, Chris. I would be welcomed. I would open my arms to having Chris Paul back because you're talking about setting a cultural standard. And what do we know? When Chris Paul was here, he set a standard of success for this franchise. So bringing him back and helping these young guys learn the ins and outs of the game to be as incredible and great of players as you possibly can. And you're not going to have to rely on him. He's not going to be the starter. He'll probably play 20 or 12 to 15 minutes a game when he is available. And you're talking about a guy who played every single game last year for the San Antonio Spurs. He is older. He's over 40 years old now, right? Are you going to count on him playing 82 games again next year? I don't think so. You can't. You just can't from his injury history as well. But I would be ecstatic to bring Chris Paul back into this room. I think that would be the hammer. That would be the cherry on top for me from what the Phoenix Suns are trying to do, moving this team into a new era. Give us one last hurrah with Chris Paul. Let's do it. Why not?
Yeah, I'm here for it, honestly. Like, again, with no expectations, like bring Chris Paul in. Great veteran leader, like basically a coach on the floor. Devin Booker already has a relationship with him and respects him. Maybe he can reel in Jalen Green a little bit, provide some mentorship to this now young core. But that's the exciting thing, Mike, is that this Suns team is young again. So yeah, bring in old man Chris Paul for one last hurrah and let him coach these kids up before he kicks them out of the nest and watches them fly free next season. But it was exciting to see what Paul was able to do with the young kids early on. It seems like nobody could get through to DeAndre Ayton no matter what you did. There's and that's something we didn't get to talk about since last week, right? DeAndre Ayton getting cut by Portland. We talked about it just a little bit, but he hadn't officially signed with LA yet, I don't think.
No, he hadn't. Let's save it for the next roundtable or heat check in person because I got some true thoughts for DA.
Ooh, okay. Little teaser. I like it. Yeah, let's save it. Let's wrap up our Suns talk. Because like I said, we gotta save the juicy bits, and then of course we'll get news about the Bradley Beal, whatever's happening to him, and then be more to report back in the near future. Because we got trivia next week. Return of Valley Sports Plug, Valley Trivia Plug. Where I think this is the first time neither you or I will be participating. We're gonna have a new team, a new challenger appear potentially. So make sure you guys, if you're listening back, tune in at 7 p.m. live to watch it on YouTube, or it'll be available for playback immediately on YouTube and next day on all podcast streaming services. Of course, you can follow us at AZ_VSP on Instagram, X, TikTok, and so much more. Find our link tree in the description below and make sure you like and subscribe right here on YouTube. Ring the notification bell so you can see when we're going live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. except for occasional exceptions like this week where we had to move it to Wednesday. But if you follow us, you'll be able to see when those changes occur. But Mike, there's just a few more things I wanted to get to before we get out of here on this Wednesday night. Your Arizona Diamondbacks. I don't know what to make of this team, Mike. They're hot, they're cold. They're losing games they shouldn't. They're winning games they shouldn't. Just when I want to give up on them, they give me a sliver of hope, and then they fall on their face, and then they're injured, and everybody's having Tommy John surgery. But we're getting a break here. All-Star breaks this next week. We got Ketel Marte named as the starter at second base. And then correct me, keep me honest here, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's Corbin Carroll and Eugenio Suarez as the reserves for the NL All-Stars. And there it is, the three of our All-Stars there. Good-looking bunch, Mike. Good-looking bunch.
I love it, man. And I think the surprise of the bunch, which maybe we shouldn't have been surprised with the way that he's been hammering the baseball this entire year, has been Eugenio Suarez, man. What a stellar season this guy has had. He's fifth in the majors with 28 home runs right now. He's bumped up his average. He was struggling for a good amount of time, probably the first month and a half, other than hitting the long ball. But his average is up to 252. 74 RBIs already, Chris. He's on pace to basically set his single season record for RBIs. There's going to be a whole bunch of conversations we're going to have when it comes to Gino Suarez. And I'll tease it. We're going to have a, trade deadline stream at the end of this month, basically a couple of days before the MLB trade deadline goes down. And man, Gino Suarez is basically playing himself into a position of pay me now or get me gone, because he deserves it with what he's done within his time frame for the Arizona Diamondbacks. You know, on the defensive side this year has not been great. I feel like he's in double digits with errors, but what he brings with the pop from his bat and the more consistent, hit for average, and obviously hit in runs for what he's been doing over the past 2 months has been outstanding, I would say. So it's just awesome to see the guys that are the true franchise cornerstones, specifically in Ketel Marte and Corbin Carroll, obviously get these nods. I think it's Corbin's second time. But man, I think for where we've been standing watching this entire season, Chris, we were a little bit gun shy to go out there and truly say, hey, 100% these guys have to be all-stars. I would have said for Ketel Marte, specifically when he started the season injured, I wouldn't have penciled him in as the starter at second base for the National League. And he was clear-cut vote for starting position, man. That just warms my heart, Chris. I mean, 291 average this year. He's already up to 19 home runs as well. Like, I love Ketel. We obviously love Corbin Carroll. It's crazy to see him back from his injury so fast as well. I'm concerned for that kid. I know he wants to be out there playing ball for right now, but when you find yourself sitting 5 games back in the last spot for the wild card, we know we're over the halfway point now as well, but you just have to think about the future a little bit if it truly isn't your year. And as VSP Tallman would say, there's always promise, but we're getting dangerously close to the point where we have to look ourselves in the mirror and say to ourselves, do we have a run like we did last year in us? Where I think at the end of the season, we went 44-26 to finish the season. Is that a true standard that this Arizona Diamondbacks baseball team has in it? And do they have it in them with all the injuries that they've incurred at this point? Time will tell, but it's awesome to see these boys getting the nods that they deserve, man.
No, absolutely. I 100% agree. And it's crazy with Suarez, especially like a year ago, like almost a year ago today, like we were having conversations about him potentially being DFA'd and not even being on this team because he was doing so bad. And then the end of last season and into the beginning of the first half of this season, he's been one of the best hitters in baseball, like power hitters, which is crazy. Like he's not an Aaron Judge, but he is right up there with like you said, like I think top 15 or something like that in hitting as far as like power hits. So really incredible. But that again has to be part of the conversation of like with this team, are they going to be buyers or sellers? That's been the hot topic. And I think it was either Derek Hall or Mike Hazen. One of those guys was on one of the local radio shows, and they asked him like, what record by the deadline do you want to see to determine, whether you're buyers or sellers or like which way? And like, he couldn't give an answer. He's like, I don't know. It's probably not going to be record based necessarily. It's going to probably be like, how's this team looking? What direction are they trending in? And it's like I was saying when we started talking about this, Mike, like some days I'm like, oh, this Diamondbacks team is good. Like they could make a run here. And then other days I'm like, wow, this bullpen is completely inept and we're not going anywhere with them. But things can change so quickly with a team. And especially, if we do end up being buyers at a deadline and there's some guys out there that we might be able to bring in for this bullpen. Like we got Ryan Thompson, I think it was that 23 year, and he helped us make that run, like bringing in Paul Sewald. Like there were some moves where guys like made a difference and they stepped up. Like we just saw Andrew Saalfrank get called back up after his suspension that he had, and he's eligible to pitch tonight. I don't know if he will necessarily, but that's a guy who, again, during that 2023 run, like did find a little bit of lightning in a bottle. So like we got the news earlier this week that Shelby Miller is now on the 15-day IL. Another pitcher bites the dust, and like we're at the point where like you open up our roster and you don't know 90% of the guys pitching. Like I don't think anybody knew who Juan Murillo was at the beginning of the season, like, or even thought that he'd be pitching for us. Not to mention all the host of guys that we've just kind of picked up and plugged in. And it's like now with Shelby, so at the beginning of the season, it was like, who's going to be the closer? Is it going to be Justin Martinez or AJ Puck? And like both of those guys are pretty much done for the season. So then it was like, oh well, now at least you got Shelby Miller. He's solidified as like he's going to be the closer, right? No, now he's on the IL. So are we back to having Ginkel step up and look for him in the closer role? Is Saalfrank or Beeks, one of these guys, going to step up and take it? Like, I don't know, Mike. I think that's the toughest part is like, and that's why like I start leaning towards us probably being sellers because like, how are you going to patchwork this? And it's like, I guess for me, like I'm so waffly on this type of stuff. And I wish Tallman was here, and he'll be back soon so we can pick his brain. But like, where do you fall, Mike, on like the optimism scale of like, if they do, in the next 2 or 3 weeks here, go on a good run where it looks like they're trending up? Do you think there's enough juice left in the tank to get through the entire second half and make a playoff run with how bad and inconsistent the bullpen has been?
Chris, I got to be honest with you. No, I don't. It's not that I don't have faith that this team will continue to compete and put themselves into situations where they can win night in, night out. But I think the injuries, dude, I mean, call me the excuse maker. That's fine. But you already touched on two of them. Your high leverage guys who were supposed to, either be the setup or the closer are done for the season, probably next season as well. The one guy who stepped up in Shelby Miller, right forearm inflammation. What does that do for his mechanics moving forward within the next, 2.5 months of the season? Kevin Ginkel has been a shell of himself. And then we obviously still have to kind of talk about the rotation where the inconsistencies continue to still show their ugly face night in, night out. Let's give a tip of the cap to Brandon Pfaadt tonight. He went 7 innings, only allowed 2 runs as well. I think we just added on another run. So we're hopeful that we can win this game tonight with a 7-2 lead going into the bottom of the 8th. But Chris, that's where I still sit. This team can have 4 or 5 run leads every night, and I'm still anxious if this team is going to be able to close it out, because anybody you throw out in the bullpen right now, it just seems like it's a recipe for disaster for one of them each night, right? You might have 2 great outings from Kevin Ginkel, but the next time out, he lays an egg. Like it's hard to ask for consistency for major league pitchers. I understand that, especially with the level of hitters in today's game. But we just haven't seen anything like this from this Diamondbacks club for the past 3 seasons. And with no true help in sight, even if you bring in 1 or 2 arms in a bullpen that is tragically undermanned right now, Chris, I don't know how you can look yourself in the mirror and feel confidence if you are even able to get out of this 5-game hole that you can go into a wild card series and win it and make a playoff push. And that's, we haven't even talked about the guys on the offensive side who have been down and who get nicked up as well. Gabriel Moreno, all those other kind of guys. We saw Corbin Carroll out for the stretch with the broken wrist. So I'm always going to have confidence with this group, manned by Torey Lovullo, that they will compete their damnedest, right? But can they compete to push for a World Series title this year? And I think at this point, Chris, the answer is an astounding no, because all we have seen is mediocrity from this team this year. And to be pushing past 90 games in a season where I think we're 45 and 47, you kind of are what you are. And the Diamondbacks are a mediocre ball club this year. It's just a fact. I'm sorry, VSP Tallman. It's where we stand.
Yeah, and that's the another thing we run into is sometimes we have to look at these things objectively and be real. Like, this team isn't just 1 or 2 pieces away from being like a true, like, yeah, that's a bona fide title contender. Like, this team is a whole bullpen and probably a starting pitcher away from that. And honestly, like, we could probably use a little bit of more help in the infield as well. Like, I'd hate to say that, but like, sometimes there's some like you mentioned, some moves on the infield, some defensive plays that leave a little bit to be desired. And like, I do like the addition of Josh Naylor. And if you don't move on from him at the trade deadline, I would hope that they look to extend him and keep him here. He's a young guy in his mid-20s. So you need a good cornerstone first baseman. He's a big lefty, and what he lacks in defensive ability, he certainly does make up for on the offensive end. But man, I don't know. I think for me, like, it'd be honestly like better to just sell than to try and scramble and cling to some grasp of life, hoping you make a wild card run. And like, what are the chances, like, truly, of this team making a wild card run like we did before? Like, very slim. It's a very steep uphill battle with like the toughest division in baseball in the NL West. So you sell the pieces you have to build yourself up for success in the more near future. Like, yeah, this year is a wash. Are there prospects out there we can trade for that are going to help us be competitive in the next 2-3 years? Like, how can we start building up a deeper bench, if you will, of a bullpen, to where if we have a couple guys go down with injury, like, we're not in such a bad position. Like, you can't tell me like there's not people out there that we can't get for these expiring contracts in Eugenio Suarez, Zach Gallen, Josh Naylor. If you do decide to move him, I'm sure there'll be some phone calls for Lourdes Gurriel Jr. and whoever else they maybe Carol Shelby. Jesus, I can't talk. I don't know, Mike, but like, these are the pieces that I'm thinking like we can move to get something back to help us be competitive more in the near future.
Well, because the other thing you have to think of is the decisions, not only if you're trying to make moves at the trade deadline to somehow make a push this year, you have to think about the decisions for the future. I mean, if you're going to keep Zach Gallen around, he's going to command $200+ million. You just sunk all that money into Corbin Burns, who's going to be out until 2027. You know, Gino Suarez has been great, but he's been in the league for 10, 12 seasons already. He's not getting any younger, right? You have to decide what you're going to do. Oh my goodness. Who's the one guy with Jordan Lawler? You know, if he's going to be a part of this system, you already gave a contract extension to Geraldo Perdomo. You got to find a different place to play Lawler, because you can't just try and run it back the way that you did this year when you called him up, giving him spot starts, moving him all around. You have to give him consistency to grow. So are you going to pay Gino if you're going to think that Jordan Lawler is going to be a part of your future still? And then Josh Naylor, I love that you brought it up, Chris, because look at Sports Illustrated talking about a mock trade of sending Josh Naylor to the San Diego Padres. Come on, man. If we're trading this guy who, yes, he is one of the youngest on our team, but has had a solid impact, I would say, this season from the plate, and has done what he could from the first base defensive side, which I know was going to be a hard ask when you're talking about a 3-time Gold Glover in Christian Walker that you're losing. But there's too many decisions in big money players that you have to make as well, I think, to be trying to finagle around stuff to try and make a push right now, unless those leverage pieces are these players and you're trading them out to get capital back, right? Man, the tough part about this, Chris, is that the time is ticking, right? And I still don't feel like the Arizona Diamondbacks have done enough, I would say, even in the past month and a half, to give you confidence to say, let's go all in and let's be buyers. Because, I mean, shoot, can I pull this up here? What are we sitting, even in the last 10 games? Like, I think we got to be under 500, right? Last 10 games, 4-6, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, just look at this here. Hold on. It's funny. I think I had seen a post on Twitter the other day of them showing the Diamondbacks just like splits for the season, where at that moment in time they were 500. They were 41-41. They were 20-20 on the road and 21-21 at home. And their run differential was exactly the same. I mean, you're looking at it right now, right? 23-25 at home, 22-22 away. Our run differential is +2. We're basically 500 over the last 10. Sinking more capital into guys right now, I just don't know where that gets you. Because the big thing, and Chris, I'm going to be the one who keeps talking about this, I feel like, because I feel like VSP Tallman doesn't want to see the writing on the wall in regard to this. Next year, with the amount of bullpen guys, and you're starting, it's supposed to be ace in Corbin Burns being out for probably next year. What is the true expectations of this team being a playoff competitor next year? So if you don't have true confidence that this team is is really going to make any kind of run to sink money in for the next next season and a half, technically, why would you be doing it? Why wouldn't you wait until 2027? So time is ticking. It's getting scary.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you there 100%. Like the prospect of us having to throw away a whole season already and like another half of a season, like I'm almost just wanting us to accept that is the reality and not try and, inch us a few nudges closer to a playoff berth of a wild card berth just to get bounced out, because we're not built for success yet. We might be good enough to be around a 500 team, maybe a little bit above 500, but like this team is lacking a lot of the signature characteristics you see of like a championship team. And like, yes, they're scrappy, they can be fun at times, but like the inconsistencies and like the manic, like almost like swings that this team has. I'm not talking like their actual like swings at the balls, but like where it's like we'll have an 8-run inning, we'll be up by 10 runs, and then we'll give up that same number of runs in the exact same inning. And it's like we've talked about this before, like it's got to be demoralizing to be these guys on offense, to put up such a great performance only to have it all thrown away by your pitcher. Like, and it's tough, man. It's tough because like we were here in the offseason again. I know we've brought this up where it's like we're spoiled for choice. We have so many pitchers. Like we have more starters than we know what to do with. A couple of these starters are going to have to be in the bullpen. And now to be in the position we're in, it's like things just change so quickly. And that's the other thing where it's like I feel like baseball's a little bit different because I'm sitting here saying like trade your commodities for future pieces, but it's like it's such a crapshoot. Like guys can spend a majority of their career in the minor league system, get called up and have a tremendous couple months of a run and then go back to obscurity. And like, you never hear from it. It's like, that is the fickle nature of baseball, but you gotta just like kind of like we said with this talking about the Suns, you got to get the best talent available. And for the longest amount of time you can for control. It's like, I know it seems really, dumb to kind of say it like that, but you generally do. You want the most amount of control for the least amount of money with the best amount of output. And like we've gotten that in a couple of guys. Like I think we're getting great value out of Corbin Carroll, Geraldo Perdomo. Honestly, probably still really good value out of Ketel Marte. And that's a guy that like, it's nice that he's starting to finally get some like notoriety nationally. And whereas like the Diamondbacks as well are getting much more respect than they ever have in the last 10 years, just from the 2023 run, that being so successful, having young guys like Corbin Carroll. And now even, I mean, depends on who you ask. Ketel Marte is not exactly a young man anymore, but it's an exciting team. And it just sucks that this is kind of in the season that we've been dealt, because I know there are a lot of Tommy John injuries, but it just seems like we've been plagued more than any other team has. And I don't know. And I also, that's the other thing, without having deep dived it too much, like I don't know what the market is out there for guys that, because like I said, I don't think we're one or two guys away, but even if we are, who are those one or two guys that we can go get, and how much are we going to have to give up for them? Is it, like you said, is it going to be moving Lawler? Is it going to be moving Drew Jones? Who else is in our farm system that these guys are going to be attracted to? Don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last point I would say, if you're sticking from the standpoint for me, saying the next true competitive Arizona Diamondbacks team, outside of just you're talking about right now, obviously we don't know what kind of moves are going to be made at the trade deadline. We have no idea what kind of moves would be made next year if they re-sign guys, that kind of stuff. I'm talking about reloading, making sure everybody is healthy. 2027, you almost have to kind of keep around those minor league stars, because that might be the time frame where they're ready to be called up and be contributors, man. So time will tell. But Chris, I mean, don't you have the same birthday as Ketel Marte? So we can just ask you, like, do you feel like a young guy still?
We do have the same exact birthday and year. Some days I feel younger than others. I'll put it that way.
I feel you. I'm going into my Kevin Durant year in about 2 weeks. So I probably am feeling a little bit farther along than you do in that aspect. But last comments I have on the Arizona Diamondbacks, the All-Star break couldn't get here fast enough, I think, for this team, Chris. Like, guys just need to get a breather, especially after going through a gauntlet, of 2 4-game series against your division opponents, with the San Francisco Giants and finishing up the San Diego Padres. I'll give another shout out to Brandon Pfaadt. Looks like he actually went 8 innings, under 100 pitches, only 2 runs allowed. That's what you need from your starters right now, Chris, because of the inconsistency of the bullpen. But can you really rely and ask that from those guys all consistently? I don't know if that's fair for them, but we're going to have some fun watching the All-Star game. We're going to be cheering on Corbin, Ketel, and Gino, and we're crossing our fingers that Gino is in the home run derby. I think it only makes sense for him to be there. So I will be tuning in. We're going to have some fun.
Dude, I can't wait. I love the home run derby. Like, probably my favorite part of the All-Star break. And I like the MLB All-Star game too. It's like it's different from like the Pro Bowl and the NBA All-Star game, where it's like this is actually, it's still a baseball game, but it's like these guys can actually try and like still have fun with it without like risk of an injury or whatever. But yeah, the break couldn't have come at a better time. I know the Diamondbacks really need it. They will finish out the first half of the season with a 3-game series against the Angels, a team that is not doing so great themselves. They're 44-47. So, man, if we can go out on a note of, if it looks like, again, like, I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, but it looks like we could win this game against San Diego. So even if they beat us tomorrow, we still split the series 2-2. I will live with that. But then if we could win that series, 2 of the 3 against the Angels, I think that would set us up and be looking, if my math's right here, that would have us looking right at about 500 again. So I don't know, 500. It makes me sad. Like, it makes me think like you're bad if you're 500. But in baseball, it's 91 wins. 91 wins is pretty damn good. Obviously, you want your team, if they're real dominant, being close to that 100-win mark. But or no, okay. So wait, it's 162.
It'd be 80.
Games, right?
It'd be 81 wins.
81 wins. Okay, yeah. I keep thinking there's more games than there really are. 81 wins is still not terrible, but yeah, 90 plus is what we're hoping for, and that's what they're gonna need to get into the playoffs. So, gonna be a lot of moving and shaking happening. Arizona Cardinals news incoming, Mike. I think what the camps and stuff are starting here later this month. So we'll be having some news. I'm gonna have to shake off my my football dust and my football jerseys and get rolling on that. But Mike, unless I have anything else to keep rambling on, or if you had anything, anything else you want to say before we get out of here for the night?
Only thing I gotta say is, what's up, Low Tone Capone? It's good to see you too, man. Always appreciate you jumping in here on our lives. Different one, man. I feel like we haven't done a different day than Tuesday in so long, but I think, I don't know about you, Chris, I was chomping at the bit to get in front of the people and talk about Arizona sports. And it just perfectly worked out that Devin Booker got paid. So always a pleasure, Chris. Always a great time chopping it up with you. And let's do it again next time.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I appreciate you coming on, Mike. Always love to just chat sports, Arizona sports, especially in times like these when things are not always great. So plenty of heartfelt conversations to be had. I wish we had gotten that Bradley Beal news, but again, we'll keep you guys updated. We'll chat about that in the very near future, and follow us at AZ_VSP on Instagram, X, TikTok, and so much more, so you can stay up to date with everything going on. But we're going to go ahead and get out of here. We'll see you next Tuesday for some trivia right here on Valley Sports Plug YouTube page. But until next time, for Michael Benjamin, I'm Chris Patrick, and we'll see you. Peace.